treat everyone the same.
Right. Yeah, I actually just thought of this yesterday. I think I was texting a friend of mine, or we were having a conversation, and I said, why is it that, or actually, I was trying to figure out that I wonder what the average salary is for people who have suffered from police brutality or who have been killed by police unjustly, right? Like, I don't mean people who literally had guns, but just the average salary. And then I also wonder what the average level of education is. Not that I'm blaming the victim, but just so, because I'm comparing that you don't see billionaires getting profiled for crimes, right? Like, they never fit this description of...
Yeah, they get a slap on the wrist. Like, look at what's happening with that stupid, like, Lori Loughlin, and then, like, just because they brought their kids in to get to USC, which got, like, I don't know, so many months, money talk, like, sadly.
Yeah. Yep. You'll never see an NFL owner getting manhandled by cops. Because I think they just treat people with money differently. Just my thoughts.
At least, like, I don't know. I think it's good, though, that people are at least having their conversations. You know how they say it's not going to be overnight. It's going to take time.
Yeah.
And then I've been seeing, like, on, like, Instagram, like, people are calling out brands, like, tell me how many you've hired, people of color or black, and they're, like, sharing their numbers, and they're talking about, like, they're going to do better with their hiring and all that. But I don't know. I guess it's one of those things I feel like I'll see it when I believe it. Like, when do you stop that racism in companies and mistreatment? I don't know.
Yeah, totally. Because why do they all of a sudden care now as opposed to caring 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago? Like, why now do you care? Because societal pressure has said to care. You have these demonstrations, protests, and unrest in every every state in the U.S., and then you also have it in other countries as well. And it's just like, how do you not respond? Like, you have to. Because if you don't, you're going to take a big fall in what your stocks are worth and what your company's worth. And then you're going to create, some billionaire's going to be pissed when they start losing money because you didn't send out some kind of 2-paragraph statement about Black Lives Matter. Like, even if you don't change anything, at least, someone's like, hey, send out the letter, copy someone else's and just send it. Make them happy.
Like, what's your statement? Like, it's worse if you're silent for somebody not saying anything than it's like, are you just tone deaf? Are you not listening to, paying attention to what's going on, basically? Yeah. And then I was talking to a girlfriend, too. Like, we were saying, like, I don't know if it's, like, between blogger chicks or just women. Like, we were saying, like, we're both, like, Asian American. We were saying, like, it feels like a little bit of a competition online right now. Everyone's posting about what they're doing, how they're doing, and announcing, oh, look who I follow, and look at these shops you should support. And I don't know, in my head, it kind of is like, I guess, like the Christian way. It's like, why are you announcing it? Why don't you just go freaking do it? Like, I don't need to prove myself to others and say, hey, I'm doing this, and this, buying this book, I'm just going to go do it. Or I don't know. I feel like, too, like, why don't you do that to begin with? Like, why don't you follow these black creators, influencers, shops, beauty brands that are black owned? Why don't you do that to begin with? Like, why are you now, like, posting about it and saying, hey, look at this shop you need to follow? I don't know. that stuff freaking irks me.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you should have had that upbringing or that point of view, I think, all along.
But I think typically people don't really seem to care too much about what goes on in someone else's world if it doesn't personally affect them. Because I noticed that if women are talking about equality and fair treatment and rights and everything like that, men typically don't care. And when men are talking about, how much they suffer from suicide and depression, and how much they go to jail more than other more than women. Women probably kind of find ways to validate that, because it's like, well, it ain't us, it's probably your own fault. The same way a guy would respond to a woman if she gets raped. It's like, damn, that's a horrible way to respond to someone. It's your own fault. Like, that's how people respond to black folks when we get killed unjustly. Like, well, you shouldn't have done something X, Y, and Z. Like, damn, I was just breathing in my car. Sorry for breathing.
Yeah, I was just sitting there.
Yeah.
You're right, the whole victim mentality, how was that, solve anything?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we need to have a revolution in the heart of people, right? And I could go the Christian route and say, we all need to think like Christ and do what's God honoring and stuff, but that doesn't apply to everyone because not everyone's a Christian or whatever. So, but there is at least like, can you have empathy for someone who's going through something without trying to immediately find why it's their own fault, even if it is to a degree? Can you just have empathy and be like, man, I'm sorry you're going through that, and just let them talk, let them share their experience, because you might find out more information that says, damn, that really wasn't their fault. That shouldn't have happened. I've heard stories and read articles or posts even about there was a guy sitting in his car asleep, and I think as he woke up, cops thought he was going for a gun, quote unquote, and shot like 50 rounds into him. Obviously killed him. Yeah, I don't remember what city that was in, but I know it was U.S., and I know the dude was black. So it's like, what are you supposed to do? Should I not wake up?
Yeah. I know the racial profiling for sure, has to stop. Just because, even EJ tells me about his friend who's like, oh yeah, he's like, one time FBPD, got up all in his face, just because he's black. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I once was, one of the stories I wrote to you, when you asked about one of my incidences of racial prejudice or racism, I was in, that must be one of the girls. Is that one of the girls?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. You might hear them. They're playing in a little plastic pool.
That's awesome. But this was back in 01, 02. I was driving to Benihana over by the airport, over by John Wayne. Yeah.
Yeah, Newport.
Yeah, and I couldn't find it, and I went way past it and ended up in Fashion Island, which is 5 miles down the road. And I was driving around thinking it was in Fashion Island, kept driving around and couldn't find it. And the cop pulls me over, and I'm like, for what? What did I do? He pulls me over, I park, he says, you look lost. I said, I am. I'm looking for Benihana, and here's the address. Do you know where that is? No, I don't know where that is, but give me your license registration, and we go from there. I'm like, okay. And then he says, okay, so I need to exit my vehicle so he could search my car. I said, search my car for what? He said, look,
go eat.
Yeah, literally, and
you're like, I'm hungry, yo.
I'm trying to get to where I'm going. And that's what he used against me. He's like, look, I can either wait for a warrant to come to search your vehicle because you look suspicious, looking like it's a mall. You got to look for stuff, fool, right? But anyway, he's like, I can get not a restraining order, excuse me, a search warrant to search your vehicle and make you later to your engagement than you typically would have been, or you can just let me search now. And I was like, that is so messed up.
It's Newport PD.
Yeah. It's really interesting. But now,
what happened? So then he searched your car and then
found nothing. Wasted his time.
Nothing. Wasted his time. And you're like, dude, I'm late to dinner.
Yeah, I don't smoke weed. Barely drank. Didn't do any drugs. So I was like, I don't know what you're looking for because you ain't gonna find anything.
Damn.
Yeah, that guy was an ass.
You're like, dude, yeah, of course I'm lost. I'm like, I look for my restaurant.
And it goes to the, if I were a female, blonde female that, same age or whatever, would I have been, circled as many times in the same kind of car? Would I have then gotten some help, or would I have also been, had my car searched and threatened for a search warrant and all that stuff. Like, it's just a difference in how cops respond to people based on how they look.
Yeah.
There was no need for
Horrible.
that. Yep.
And I would say especially here in freaking conservative Orange County, too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that shit I feel like happens, like, on the daily or, more.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it does. And it's happened less to me in the last, like, I've been pulled over since leaving downtown Huntington Beach as far as, working there, which was 2012. I think I've been pulled over 2 times, I think. And the one time was because I was on my phone while I was driving. That was my fault. Actually, that may have actually been the only time. I had a cop follow me another time when I was on my way home from the freeway once, and I knew that they were following me, and I was like, I'm not doing anything wrong, dude. Leave me alone. So I actually hid in a parking lot when they couldn't see me when I turned the corner, and I saw them turn down the street slowly, and then turn around and head back to where they were going. I'm like, they were looking for me. They had to be. Because whenever I would change lanes, they would change lanes.
They were, like, literally following you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. People are like, oh, no, you're paranoid. I'm like, are you serious?
You're like, are you kidding me right now?
Yeah. They didn't see the cop. The cop was already turning toward my direction anyway. So, I'm not going to lie and say all that. But the fact that when I changed lanes a couple times, they did too. And I was like, that's interesting. And then when I turned down the street, then they slowly turned down that street too. And, we're kind of looking. I could see the lady in her car looking, and then saw nothing, and then turned back around. I'm like, oh, I don't know where he went. Yeah, I parked in a spot where I could see her when she would when she turned the corner, because I'm not stupid.
Wow.
Yeah, I actually have a couple of posts I'm going to put up next week or whenever I get back online, because I'm taking a little break right now. And one post I have is about how there are probably women I've dated, boyfriend, girlfriend type stuff, that have different stances on justice right now in the whole Black Lives Matter movement. I bet there are women I've dated that are just like, no, this is BS, and Black Lives Matter is ridiculous, and all lives matter. And I would have the toughest time staying with somebody over something like that. That's so important to me, and so important to just society in general, that I don't even know how I would function like that. Like, how could you,
Exactly. Like, how do you date someone or, like, I don't know someone with different, like, ideology?
Mm-hmm.
Where you're like, it's like, hello, you're just, like, erasing and, like, not even recognizing that blacks are just treated different from, like, other groups.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm actually trying to do that with, like my Filipino families, like, trying to make them understand, the difference between that word, all lives matter, versus Black Lives Matter, and I think it hasn't really, like, I think sunk in, and it could be also just, like, not a generation gap, but different points of view, because my cousin, he's a recent immigrant from the Philippines, like, a few years ago, so maybe he hasn't, understand, like, the American point of view, or, he's not, like, a Filipino-American like I am.
Right.
So, I think, it's just probably more education, or just more understanding about what that truly means. So, like, there's, like, a gap there, so, I don't know, I feel like just in Filipino communities, like, some just don't get it.
Yeah, but I also wonder if there's Filipino communities are maybe a little more conservative or Republican than any other political party.
I don't know, like, could be, I guess you're right, because I do have 2 conservative uncles, like, one's, like, ex-military or ex-Navy, I would fight with him versus Republican versus Democrat, so it could be, that upbringing too. Come into play, like, why they think that way, versus there's other liberal, I guess, Filipinos who get it, understand where that sentiment it's coming from.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that. Because I do know, like, from talking to Tree, he says that Vietnamese, like, community, he says they're very conservative. Like, they came from communist country, and, they're already, like, weary of government already, and, like, want to stick to their own type. And so I kind of get, I guess, why some of them, like, Vietnamese, are, like, Republican, just because they just want to own a business and just keep to themselves.
Yeah.
I don't know, versus like my Filipino group where, I don't know, feels like it's different. Like there's more variety of school of thought there.
So it's not so strict, but I mean, you're saying, Vietnamese came from a very strict communist, environment. I mean, not even just communist, but like very controlling. Like that's just holy cow.
Yeah, they escaped that like in '75, and it's like, they don't. Because I even asked Tree, I said, hey, do you or your siblings talk to your parents about any of this? And he's like, oh, well, they watch the news. I said, well, have you guys like brought it up? And he says, no, not really. And I don't know. I think it also could be just the whole like Asians in general. We don't talk about like touchy subjects. You don't talk about mental health. You don't talk about, suicide. Like just all these taboo subjects. So it's just kind of sad that I don't know. I guess kids and parents, they're not being like super open about those difficult topics.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I do know some parents are starting to talk with their kids about this stuff. I got a phone call or a voicemail the other day from a friend of mine I've known for a long time, and he admitted that he finally now understands that his skin tone, he's a white guy, he finally understands that his skin tone allows him to be treated in a much better, favorable position than mine. He didn't know. He just couldn't hear it before, but I guess now he can. I'm like, oh, well, finally. All right, sweet. It took a long time, and
You're like, okay, you finally understand you do got the white privilege.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at just how many billionaires there are in this country, like, they're all men and they're all white, pretty much.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like...
The executives, like the C-level for sure. Like the last company I was at, it was like 4 or 5 execs, barely any women. Maybe they hired a few, like, Asians or Latinos. Maybe having maybe 1 or 2 black guys, like the project managers. But yeah, at the top level, I doubt they would ever like hire anyone at the C-level, CEO or VP. That's the minority, and I was just like, okay, how deaf are you?
Yeah, man. It's like,
and they were very just like. I ended up quitting after like 3 years there. I just got so burnt out with their attitudes, but they were very much like, it's my way or the highway. Like they so close-minded if you didn't agree with, particular creative campaign or whatever business or what client says, then it's like, no, you need to do it this way. And I was like, no, that's not how you treat companies or employees. It's not communism.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where's our voice?
It's funny because that reminds me of another workplace we used to have. Am I wrong or am I right?
Yeah, that place was nuts too. Were you the one telling me that his website is back up?
It was, and now it's something else instead. It's like a electrician something or other. But yeah, it's not what it used to be. It's different now, and I don't think he's involved at all. It's like a different company name completely.
Anyways, forgot I need to ask you some questions.
Let's do it.
Oh my God.
So you want to hear my backstory of who I am and how I came to be?
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, I was born a simple yet confused man. No.
I'm like, am I writing that down? Okay.
So yeah, a little about myself, single man, Christian, godfather of 3, mentor, volunteer, I'm a therapist. I am a recent resident of Long Beach after over 40 years in Orange County, including like the last 10 or so in Fountain Valley. And I love the NFL, I love football, and I love horror movies and professional wrestling. So I'm a big nerd for a lot of stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. Forgive the noise in the background. I live in a very noisy area. Matter of fact, at like 4 a.m. this morning, I'd been asleep for only a couple hours. Somebody was in the alleyway yelling, "Heaven! Heaven!" I swear to God, it was like 5 times. And finally someone else was like, "Shut the fuck up!" And then the lady yells back to the other lady and says, "Make me, bitch, come get this work." And I was like, oh my God, can y'all shut the... but I just I'm not saying nothing because I don't want no one throwing nothing at my apartment. I just,
you're like, I just moved here, dude. I'm like, let's just chill.
Oh my God, 4 a.m.? And they were honking the horn too. They were, it was so bad. And I could hear the guy at the end being like, "Hey, she ain't coming out, let's just go. I was like, thank God. Shut up. Oh. This is why I don't believe in the Second Amendment, because I would have used it in that moment. This is why. Just to save everyone else, y'all are welcome, okay? This is why.
He's like, "You're welcome, guys." He's like, "If you annoy me and I'm in my slumber..."
Yeah. Like, it's so rude. I want to send you to heaven already. You want heaven? I'll send you to heaven right now.
All right.
I got you.
Your worship like
It's just a joke. Just
kidding, man.
2 car per green. 2 car per green.
Remember when you teased me? You're like, you don't need eyeglasses. I need dental floss.
You can't say. I can't say it anymore. It's racist.
I know. But I just think about our funny carpool jokes all the time.
Oh yeah.
Like, what is wrong with those two? And I just be laughing.
And we'd be 20 minutes late to work because I couldn't get out of bed.
So remember your prerequisite carpooling if you only have like the hot apple cider.
Oh, that's right. It was delicious.
Oh my gosh! And it was only one way. Remember that? Because afterwards you had like Bible study or something to do. So
oh yeah.
I'd have to find a ride home. I was like, I've never heard of a one-way carpool.
Yeah, I wasn't very good at it, was I? Not at all.
So funny. No, it was fun. Oh my god.
Yeah, we had some good times back then. All right, so, next question. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. As a Black Christian man, how do you walk that fine line between your personal experiences and your religious beliefs?
That's a good question. I've kind of been having this struggle, kind of this personal battle already between what it's like to be Black and then how to deal with these issues and all that and the anger that comes from being Black in America, but also like how to maintain my Christ-likeness and my focus on honoring God while still being mad about injustices in the world. And it's a pretty big struggle. Like, I just don't know how to like deal with both at the same time right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have an answer really. I know that kind of sounds weird, but it's something I'm still trying to figure out, because it's okay to be mad about injustice, but to the level in which I get mad and how angry I get, and my delete button right now on Facebook and Instagram is working very well. Oh yeah. You're like no problem with that button. Yeah. But then I think too, separating myself from people who are just in another world when it comes to justice, I don't know if that's wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, some might say you have to, don't delete people. They might change their mind. I'm like, yeah, but I don't need to be connected to them still. Like, I don't need, it's just social media. I didn't say they should go die or drink, the bleach or anything like that. I just said, I don't want to be your social media friend anymore. Delete. Done.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
You're right. It's not like you drove by their house and said any words.
Yeah, I didn't yell heaven for 5 hours.
You just don't want to be associated with that.
Exactly. Exactly.
That negativity or toxic, type of attitude. I mean, I was just the same too. Like, when some friends previous was like, no, this is like a friend that constantly is like trying to pull me down and do the whole compare who's a better mom, who's a better person. It's like, no, like I don't need that constant competition. It's like, why can't we just be chill? You know?
Yeah, man. It's definitely a struggle, but I don't know. I don't know. I got to figure out how to maintain my Christ-likeness while also still being okay with how angry I get, or kind of find that, I guess, that acceptable level of anger in regard to injustice. And it's not just with black people issues. Like, one of the big things I always speak out about is, so that lady, Mary Kay Letourneau, you might remember her from the 90s, right? She's that child molester lady who ended up getting pregnant by her former student and had 2 kids with him and got married. Like, to me, she's a child molester and a pedophile, or whatever, however you want to, acknowledge her. But there's injustice there because people want to treat her like she's some kind of like poster child or poster adult, so to speak, for just loving younger people. But I'm like, wait a second. She's had a documentary about her. She's had interviews on 20. Like, who's interviewing pedophiles? Like, why are we doing this? Why do we care what they have to say? Like, they're just going to say stuff about kids anyway, right? So, I speak out of...
It's like, you're right. Why are we placing so much attention on, like, what she did and what was wrong, you know?
Because, I'll tell you this, have you ever seen or heard about a Latino or Black or Asian pedophile who had 2 kids with, the person that they victimized, and then had a documentary and some 2020 interview about it?
No.
Me either. But you did for a white lady who was 20 years older than the guy she got with, the kid she got with. She had a husband of 10 years, I think, or so already, and had 3 kids, including one kid that was the age of the kid or older than the kid that she got with. So it's like we almost, I don't want to say we, but people in the media, right, or in society almost made it look like, no big deal, it's just a woman, as opposed to if it were a man doing that to a little girl, we wouldn't have the same response. And so I still get mad about the things that are wrong, and I think I'm trying to find that happy medium with my anger and my Christ-likeness.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's also one of those things that something you constantly just have to work on. It's not like a fine balance, because both that's just both sides of you, or that is you.
Yeah. Yeah. I try to stand up for what's right, regardless of whether or not I'm affected. Some people only stand up because they're affected. And I'm like, no, if it's wrong, it's wrong, period. Not wrong because this person over here did it. Putting kids in cages from the border when they're trying to flee, BS in their own country, and they're looking for, safety. Well, Obama did it. Yeah, it's still wrong. Well, how come you didn't say anything? I didn't know it happened then. I know it's happening now, so can we stop it? Like, wrong is wrong, period, of who did it, So that's kind of where I stand. And I think, Jesus flipped tables at church when the money changers were not honoring God, and they were lying to the people and making them pay extra taxes for a specific coin so they could pay their tithe at church. Like, I think it's okay if I, quote unquote, flip some tables emotionally to honor God, because what is happening is not God honoring. So I think I'm okay kind of with my happy medium that I'm trying to still find.
So you've lived in the OC, over 40 years, and then, how's your experience living in Long Beach? And I guess what spurred the move as well?
Oh, yeah, the move has been pending for years. Like I said, I lived in Fountain Valley for the last 10 years. I rented I would rent rooms from people whenever I would move, because I couldn't afford my own apartment because it was expensive, right? And, even now, the going rate for apartments in Long Beach, just for a single bedroom, is like $1,700, and studios are like $1,100. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me! This is ridiculous. Studios are small, so I actually took a social media fast like 2 months ago, right around Easter, and just kind of let God talk to me and say, okay, now you have the energy and the focus to start looking for an apartment and do it. You have the money saved up, you make enough money, go do it. And I did, because I was sick of the roommates I had. I was sick of the noise in the house because there were just too many people. And I was like, okay, I can afford this. Let me just go ahead and do this. And what I like about living where I live now, I still live close to like whatever I need, right? Grocery stores. There's a gym that's like a half mile or a mile or so from where I live. It's not open yet, but when I go back to the gym, it's super close. I'm 3 miles 3 miles away from my home office. So it's like there's a lot of positives about this. The place I live in is it's like always cool because I'm a half mile from the water. So
nice.
it feels so much better. That ocean breeze, like it doesn't really get too hot where I live, so I like that. But I do miss, having lived in Fountain Valley for, 10 years and having everything I wanted right where I needed it to be and all that kind of stuff. And parking was better there than it is where I live now. But I just have a lot more emotional freedom and physical freedom to kind of just do whatever I want whenever I want. So that's a huge positive. And I don't think I'll ever move back to Orange County. I think I'm done, to be honest with you. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It sounds like it's what you said, just much needed. Like you've been talking about it for years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Good that, finally took the time to go do it.
Yeah, and even with the people yelling at 4 a.m. or the random ass fireworks at like 4 p.m, whatever it is, it's like still I still have my emotional peace and my physical freedom, and there's so much to be said for that. Like what a relief it is, and I'm glad I have it, and I just don't ever want to give it up again. I don't think I'll ever have another roommate. I'm never getting married. I don't want to have a roommate ever. Nope, we're done. We're done.
My next questions are actually more like looking back with what happened, last weekend and this week. And I saw your videos too about, when we were like texting like Sunday and this week during all the Long Beach, protests and the looting and focus on people stealing band shoes and stuff.
Yeah, man.
I guess tell me a little bit about that experience, like last Sunday.
Yeah, it was definitely odd for me, to say the least. Having been here only, at the time, 2-3 weeks, and just like all of a sudden there's, protests, which is totally fine. Like I couldn't see the protests from where I am. I'm on the 3rd floor of this building, but, the protests were downtown and I couldn't see all that because there's too many other buildings in front. But knowing that was going on was like, okay, cool. I'm glad to see people doing this. But then having the discussions on social media and the arguments, essentially, right? People in Huntington, people in Fountain Valley, people I've known since high school and all that kind of stuff. That was the hardest part until I started hearing the helicopters circling for hours and hours and hours above my apartment complex in the neighborhoods. And then also when I did my video last week, hearing the explosions in the background, like I said, there's already fireworks that kind of happen randomly throughout the day and at night. But in the middle of a protest / riot / looting / unrest, to hear those fireworks, those M80s and those explosions again, now I'm like trying to figure out, is that a firework or is that some police activity going on in my neighborhood? I'm like, is something going to fly in my window? I did see a drone when I went out on the patio. I saw a drone out there. I didn't know if it was a police drone, which would make sense if it was, but could have also just been a person's drone, a personal one. So yeah, it was unnerving. It was unsettling. Yeah, I was definitely nervous. I got a lot of text messages from people checking in on me. I had people offering me places to stay, because I just got here, and now all of a sudden, there's shit going on downtown. And then we had curfews for, I think Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, from 6 p.m. And then eventually Wednesday it went down to 10 p.m. And now there hasn't been a curfew since Thursday.
Wow.
Or since Wednesday, excuse me. But yeah, it's just like things are so... It was scary. It was scary for me. I'm glad it didn't get worse. And I feel bad for people who lost their businesses. You know, these businesses, they didn't have anything to do with everything going on. And I had a discussion with a friend of mine the other day. I said, it sucks that those businesses were burned and looted and stuff like that, but that's why you have insurance to insure the things within there, right? And I said it also, I blame the government for taking too long to arrest those 3 other guys and to increase that charge from 3rd degree to 2nd degree murder, because this all could have been prevented if these things would have been going on 2 weeks ago instead of, well, let's wait and see. You waited and see, and you made this happen. Like, you knew something was going to happen, and you made it happen, but they didn't know this many people would care. And that's what made them give in.
Wow.
So, I hate that, people's buildings got burned and looted, but I like that there's justice now. And I wish it wouldn't come to violence in the future, but that's what this country was built on, violence and change.
That's true.
Yeah.
Like I had a girlfriend in San Antonio, and she was telling me, things have to get worse before they get better. And I'm like, I remember hearing that statement. I was like, what? Are you sure? And then that was actually before Saturday and Sunday happened. We were texting Friday when downtown LA was getting crazy, and I was like, and I don't know, that statement just kind of bothered me. I thought it was a little pessimistic. It's like, wow, are you sure? And then it sadly right on, because what happened last weekend, and I don't know, it took an ugly turn.
Yeah.
For sure, but I think it's what you said. It's who knows if this would have happened if they were charged, all 4 of them, in the first place. Versus just one, and then I was just reading the Breonna Taylor as well.
Yeah.
There's still nothing there. I mean, I think Louisville said they're gonna look into it more. I think was the latest tweet I saw.
Okay.
But
that's good, because the Ahmaud Arbery one, those guys did that crime back in February, and look how long it took for them to get arrested because they knew the DA.
Yeah, that's what Tree was telling me too. He said it's because the DA knew one of the guys and a friend. So what? It's not a hillbilly country where, oh well, we'll let it go.
Yeah.
No. Wow, I didn't know it was this February. I remember it took some time for the charges for them to get charged.
Because the DA, they just didn't want to press charges on him.
Wow.
Yep, but they did. I think they did now. Yeah, they've been arrested. I think the 2 guys who did it, and then I think the 3rd guy who filmed it. Apparently, you could hear his gun cocking in the background of the video as if he was getting ready to kill the guy himself.
Oh my God.
And he also didn't, he didn't turn it into police or whatever. It wasn't. Well, I think he filmed it. He said because he thought it would exonerate his friends as opposed to incriminate them. Obviously, because you don't want to turn in your friends. I get it, but damn, I'm glad they got caught. I'm glad we saw the video, and I'm glad that those guys are in trouble, and I hope this stuff sticks, because these guys aren't cops. I think one of them used to be a former cop, was a former cop. So, I just hope this doesn't turn into a situation like a George Zimmerman or something like that, where, a quote-unquote vigilante person starts trying to take the law into their own hands, and they're wrong, and then they kill somebody who's black and male, and then it becomes, well, he could have had a gun. And then that'll just validate it. No, we're not doing that anymore. We're not doing supposeds.
Doing that, yeah.
D.L. Hughley said a couple years ago, the worst place for black people to live is in the mind of white folks. Because the imagination that they have of us is what makes them kill us.
Wow.
It's deep, isn't it?
That is.
Yeah.
You're right. It's all these imaginary things. And, I feel too. I have a black girlfriend, and she just tells me stuff about we were trying to find her a hair product. We went to the Sally's on Brookers, and then And it was an education to me, and she's like, oh, Donna, I looked, they don't have it. And then I was like, oh, how come? He's like, well, it's because you have no black people in your neighborhood. And I was like, oh, shit. I'm like, you're right.
Yeah.
Me is like Asian and white. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm like, and then she was looking for specific, like a diffuser for the hair dryer. And she was like, she's like, I'll just get it in, like, Long Beach or somewhere. And I was like, oh. And I was like, damn, you're right. It's like, even like simple things like that. It's like you're not catering to what people need. And
yeah, we're often ignored.
Yeah.
I think we'd be used to it by now, but we're not, and it hurts.
Yeah, that one article I sent you, the Will Smith, about, he was saying, just getting filmed more. He's like, it's not worse. This has been happening, since the 90s, probably even before we were born, like 60s, and it's just like with social media and camera phone.
Yeah. And just think, in the last 2 weeks, we've primarily focused on George Floyd, but there have been other people who have also been killed unarmed, black or Latino or what have you.
Before him.
Yeah. And even just in the last 2 weeks after George. There was a guy I think he's in Vallejo. I forget his name. I probably should look up his name to honor him because I don't want to dishonor him. But there was a guy in Vallejo who was on his hands and knees he was on his knees and he had his hands in the air, but the cops still killed him. Oh, Sean Mentarosa. They said that they thought he had a gun, but he had a hammer in his pocket. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I heard about this on Snapchat.
But it was in his back pocket, and then 2, his hands were in the air, and he was on his knees. So even if he did have a gun in his 22, fatally shot, unarmed. So.
Chill.
Yeah, and I think there's someone I follow who's a civil rights attorney, and she kind of questions and said, hey, why is it people seem to only care about a couple of these that happen? And I just said, I don't think we're built for this much trauma, to endure this much trauma, hearing these people's stories all the time. I mean, these stories happen all the time.
Yeah, exactly. On the daily or, more than daily,
Yeah, it's like being a therapist and only being able to take on so many clients. You're like, I'm worn out. I'm worn out. I can't do this, every day.
Yeah, and I feel too, like I was reading some article or like, I don't know, the IG post was talking about how some activists, they get burnt out, too, just because, you're on this, I can't even speak, just, I can definitely feel like how you can get burnt out and just, there's just too much to take in.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot. And I'm only seeing it on TV where I don't have to go to court cases and hear people's stories about it all the time, 24/7, for work, day in, day out, and then see it on my TV when I come home, for other cities and states across the U.S. So it's a bit much to take on. So yeah, that's why I take breaks from social media sometimes. I can't do it all.
Yeah, especially with like mental health and it's so important to step back. And I think you answered this one a little bit. Did you think like the curfews they had were fair in LA and Long Beach? Would you think it's for your safety, like community safety? Or I've also heard like on the other side they say it's also a suppression of political unrest, and I've also heard it's also kind of profiling minorities who, what if they don't have the 9-to-5 jobs? What if they're working after 5, 6, like, those other groups too who are affected, who are just trying to, go to work or for their family, etc. But what were your thoughts when you were on curfew there for those like 4 days?
Yeah, to a degree they make sense because of, and I'll say specifically, if they were there not for protesting but for the violence that was happening as far as the looting and the rioting, right? I wonder if people are less likely to do that in the daytime than they would at night. I don't know. I'm just guessing. I have no idea. But you're right. I don't think it was done specifically just for the violent part. I think because when you have COVID-19, which started back in January in our country, and Cheeto Head kind of ignored it. But when you have that, and you have the protesters from them protesting the COVID-19 quarantines, they were protesting back in when did they start? Like in April, I think it was. Late April, early May, somewhere in there. But you didn't have the police force using the same tactics to disperse the crowd, because you had white folks with guns yelling in the face of cops. I have photos, I've seen video of this, right? They didn't treat them the same. But when you have black people and people of color, and there's white folks in there too, who are not armed, are a lot smaller, younger typically as well, they're getting mistreated by cops on a regular. I saw a video where an older guy, taller guy, about 6'1", 6'2", maybe a little bit shorter, but he was pushed backwards by a cop. This guy was frail. I mean, like Michael Jackson frail. Pushed backwards by a cop, fell back, hit his head, cracked his head open, blood leaking out of his ears.
Oh yeah, I saw that video. That was horrible.
Guy was not a threat. I know they were clearing the area, but it was like, you did not have to push him at all. Like, you could have just, there's a way to handle that.
Old senior, I remember. He was like an older man.
And there was another one in another city where cops, once again, are clearing the area, and people are moving, and they're moving out of the way. There's one guy who can't move that fast because he's like 75, 80 years old, has a cane, and he's moving from what I can see, he's moving as fast as he can. And a cop pushed him, and he fell. Like, it just wasn't necessary. Just let the guy go. It's not necessary. Now, they felt bad about it, I could tell, because they helped him up. But it was like, you still did, like, we're fighting police brutality, and you're still brutalizing people. Right, the same thing on camera over and over and over and over and over again. And I did when I used to do my podcast on a regular basis, but I couldn't because too much depression reading all this shit all the time. I found an article that pointed out how over the course of 10 years in like 10 different U.S. cities, there was, as far as like police brutality and I think murder cases from police as well, or killing unarmed people or whatever it is. All those cases, the payouts and all that stuff cost cities in total, those 10 cities, like L.A., Baltimore, Chicago, over $1 billion. Wow. And I'm like, wait a second. If you really want to get in the head of folks and say, hey, if you fight police brutality, that will save your tax dollars and it will improve your city. Like, people may not give a shit about black folks. Fine. I understand you're not going to, and I can't change that. But I know you care about your money and your economy. So if you start fighting police brutality, you're going to start saving money. And then you're going to start finding out crooked politicians who are going to start embezzling money from the state and from the cities. But that's another story. But still, the whole thing is, the curfews were added to the George Floyd protesters, but not the COVID protesters, because you had a difference in look from both, and one was unarmed and one was not armed. Or, excuse me, one was armed. And so you just had people being treated differently. So were the curfews fair? If they focused primarily on the violence, then yes. But I don't think that's what they were there for. I think they were really there for suppression of political unrest, like you said. And so I get it, because they don't want us to win. But you can't fight change forever, or else we'd still be in chains and shackles and in the backs of plantations.
We talked about earlier when we first were talking about, racism, your experience, living here. Mm-hmm. I wrote down, what happened in Newport and also getting followed. But was there anything you wanted to add or elaborate on some of the notes you sent me? Oh yeah,
the key racist episodes. The Newport one. I remember winter formal in high school. I think it was like my junior year. I had a crush on this one girl. She had curly hair. Curly hair is my thing. So I was madly in love with how she looked. And I remember asking her to winter formal. She said yes. We would talk on the phone and totally was into her. And I think before winter formal happened. Yeah, it happened. She told me before she had to break the date. And I said, why? She said, because her parents would not be okay with her going to winter formal with a black dude.
Aww.
And I was like, ouch. That really sucked. You know? And I don't know if that was true or not, or she just wanted to go with somebody else, but her cousin, who was a friend of mine, was like, yeah, our family's not like that. I think she was just lying to you. But still, like, that's embedded in my head is your family wouldn't be okay with this. Maybe she was lying, I don't know, but ouch. You know what I mean?
Aww.
Yeah. And that was, junior year in high school? Then the first time I ever even heard the N-word, I think I was about 7 or 8 years old. And a kid who was a year younger than I was said it to me. You know, we were just messing around, playing around or whatever, and he said it, and I didn't know what it meant. And so I was telling my brother later that day, I was like, oh yeah, so-and-so said this word to me. And he's like, wait, what? He said what to you? When did this happen? And then we talked to my parents, and we had the discussion about that word and what it meant. And then my mom had to talk to his mom, and my mom kind of verbally got to her ass because, you know, it was like, no, you probably taught your son this at home. You know what I mean? Like, your son at 6 years old is saying this to my son, you know, take some ownership. She's like, no, my father's like that. It's not me. Like, okay, yeah, we'll see. Right. But, and then the worst one, I shouldn't say the worst, but one of the next ones I remember, when I was in high school again, I had a high school football teammate. He was a year older, but, we were playing softball one day or something like that. And, between the freshman team and the junior varsity sophomore team. And one of the players from the team, bigger dude, you know, he's older, came up to me and had a baseball bat in his hand. And he'd already been harassing me racially since I got there, you know, not because I did anything, just because that's just who he was. And he walked up to me and he says, I don't like you. You're an N, and I don't like N's.
Oh my God.
And I was like, I don't give an F, you know, so do what you got to do. Like, I'm just like, I'm tired of it at this point, right? Like, this dude's been bugging me for almost the entire year, you know? And one of the coaches happened to see it and came over and intervened and said, what did he just say to you? And I told him what he said. And the coach is like, all right, I'll take care of it. You go do what, you know, go get ready to play the game and I'll take care of it. And so at the end of us playing, all the other coaches apologized. This is like 1992, 93, right? All the other coaches apologized. They're like, we'll talk to them. They treated me differently. Like, they let me get in front of the line. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, oh, God, we got to handle this quick. The kid called me when he got home, when I got home, and apologized. I told my brother again what had happened. And I was like, damn, like, why am I getting hit with all this stuff? You know, and he, like I said, the dude apologized. And I saw this guy years later as a cop. He became a cop. Big surprise, right? I got pulled over, not by him, but by his buddy, because I made an illegal U-turn. I was in Costa Mesa, and, license registration. Yeah, I made an illegal U-turn. I was about to get a ticket, and a second cop pulls up, and it's him, the dude from high school. And he's like, hey, guys, what's going on? Long time no see, yada, yada, yada. I was like, what happened? I was like, hey, I made an illegal U-turn. I thought I could turn here, but I couldn't, so that's my bad. I did it wrong. I admit it. He's like, hold on, give me a second. And he actually brought my stuff back and said, hey, you're clear to go. No ticket. And so, and then I would see him at church, at Saddleback, down in Lake Forest. I would see him at restaurants. I saw him at a restaurant I used to work at, the Derby in Mission Viejo. And he came up to me and he said, you know, I didn't give you, I kept you from getting the ticket that night because I felt I owed you. You know, and I said to him, you did owe me. I knew that, but I already forgave you for that a long time ago. So he was carrying around this, I don't want to say grudge, but like he didn't forgive himself.
Guilt or something.
Yeah. And rightfully so. I mean, you are guilty. You did what you did. You knew what you were doing.
Exactly.
You know.
When you're a teen, you don't go up to someone's face.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And it was only the black players. It was me and like 2 or 3 other ones. You know, and he would only pick on us. But, we don't talk. We tried being Facebook friends. You know, this was a couple of years ago, and, I had that issue I said with the cop earlier, where the cop was following me in Fountain Valley, and I made that turn to go away. One of his comments was, "You're paranoid," and I was like, "Nope, you gotta go."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me?
You really want to? Yeah, you really want to? Exactly.
You're like, with all of our history, what happened?
Mm-hmm. You should have kept your damn mouth shut.
Yeah, you should have just.
Yeah.
Like, kept on scrolling.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Say nothing. That was his best bet. But whatever. I don't associate. Like I said, I'm not associating with people like that anymore. I don't have the space for it. I don't have the emotional or mental space for it. I'm done. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel the same. It's like, why do we waste our energy or breath on like negativity or just people like that? Like, we shouldn't have to put up with that.
Exactly.
Wow. I'm surprised that you even became Facebook friends. I'm scared.
Well, I tell you, he sat there for about a week or two before I didn't just let him in right away. It took a while. Like, because he sent me a request. I was not going to send him one,
Oh, okay. So it came from him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, this one I think we've been talking about a little bit. So we've heard on social media and news, what are some ways to solve systemic racism and police brutality? We both know it's a complex and multifaceted issue. And I saw on your answers, you had some thoughts on how we could address it. The 8 can't wait, harsher penalties for brutality, including lost wages, pension, or getting sued, death penalty for killing unarmed people. I guess besides those 3, are there, other ways? Because how we hear from, or maybe it's just my experience. I just see from white people, and they say, "Well, how do we solve this? How can we fix it?" And
yeah.
Like, no, it's not a checklist, kid. It's like,
yeah.
I'm like, it's like way deeper than that. Like, beyond me and you, So I'm just curious, like, your take on, what you think. How do we address this? Like, complex.
So the little bit I can explain about the 8 can't wait, because I was actually informed about the 8 can't wait the other day by a youth pastor I volunteer with over at the Crossing Church in Costa Mesa. And he and we've been friends for about 4 years now, maybe even 5 years. Golly, time flies. But anyway, we have conversations about race and police and just all types of life issues and stuff like that. And so he brought this up the other day in a conversation where he said, "Have you heard of 8 can't wait?" And I said, "No, I haven't." And he said, "This data is basically proving that together these 8 policies can decrease police violence by 72%. And the 8 policies are banning chokeholds and strangleholds, right? So no more Mike Brown choking people out, or Eric Garner. That was the guy in New York a few years back. He was saying, "I can't breathe," and he was getting choked out, and eventually he died because of the strangulation. Require de-escalation. So not getting into a situation like where the cops were like pushing old people to disperse a crowd, and they're falling down and breaking their heads open. Require de-escalation, like, hey, we're going to de-escalate the situation. Be a little softer when you need to be, right? Another one, require a warning before shooting. Hey, I'm going to shoot, or whatever the phrase would be. Require that, right? Exhaust all other means before shooting. So if that means you have to tase someone to get them to comply or whatever, then let that be what that is. And no more of this accident, I grabbed my taser, or I grabbed my gun before my taser by accident. We'll see. The 5th one, duty to intervene, right? So we're now talking about talking. When I used to do security at Fred's in Huntington Beach, they would bring in a guy who would teach us how to de-escalate verbally before interacting physically, right? So it was always about talking people down, getting their attention, being louder than they are, because that's almost like when you see like a bear or a mountain lion or something like that, you're supposed to get loud or whatever, scare them away. Same thing happens with people too. You get loud, they get a little scared, a little more scared, especially with a dude like my size, 6'2", 300 pounds plus. I get a little loud, people are going to shut the heck down, right? The last 3 from this 8 can't wait: ban shooting at moving vehicles, require use of force continuum. I don't even know what that means, but whatever. And then require comprehensive reporting. So I think that also means like we're going to have to reduce all that lying that happens in all that reporting that happens. You know, police give reports and, well, that wasn't the police report. Well, that's because they left it out because they were lying. You know, and I think the whole thing with the cameras on, if you turn your camera off, if you turn it off, you're fired. Not even like, well, you get a warning. No, you turn it off, you're fired. Especially if it's in the middle of something, because you shouldn't even be able to turn it off.
Yeah, like there's dash cams. Don't they have the cameras on their uniform, right? Mm-hmm. I'm like, you're right. It shouldn't even be allowed to begin with.
Yep.
Because like obviously something must be going down. Are you about to like do something? You know.
There's something else.
What are you trying to hide? You know.
Yeah, and there's something else cops will do too, which is they will, with the dash cams, they'll open the hoods of their cars. Now what does that mean?
Shoot.
You block the dash
really?
cam. Yep.
Oh, I didn't know that's happening.
Mm-hmm. So just that 8 can't wait can decrease police violence by 72%. It's already been proven by whoever did the study. I'm looking at this article here on vox.com, vox.com. So that's that one. And I know I said a couple others, which was harsher penalties for brutality, including lost wages, losing pensions, and being sued. I think that's a huge one. You know, I could go the extreme route of, you know, we're going to go after your family and hurt your family the way you hurt someone else's, but that would never pass. So I wouldn't even try.
They'll pass through court.
Yeah. No one's voting on that one. And like I said, the death sentence for killing an unarmed person. If you kill an unarmed person, you, in my opinion, as an officer, deserve the death penalty, because there's no need for you to have done that because you got scared because of your prejudice. That's on you. That's not on the person who got killed. That's on you. And the last thing, there's an article on the OklahomaEagle.net, and I'll send you this. 75 things white people can do for racial justice. Just the first couple things is, I mean, literally, it's white folks or anyone really taking an action step toward their police department. So number one, Google whether your local police department currently outfits all on-duty officers with a body-worn camera and requires that the body-worn camera be turned on immediately when officers respond to a police call. Like, I think actually once it's on, it shouldn't be able to be turned off during your shift. Like, it's turned on when you leave, it's turned off when you, or turns off when you come back in and you're checking in and stuff like that. You know, however that works. I think that's what should happen. And then number two, out of these 75, Google whether your city or town currently employs evidence-based police de-escalation trainings. So that means, you know, with the whole duty to intervene and things like that, if there's evidence-based police de-escalation trainings that exist, and I'm sure there are, they should employ those tactics, so that way it's like we can reduce the number of people who are getting killed, because it's just not necessary. And like I said, if you want to save your city tax dollars, you have to invest in other stuff that's going to save it in the long run, and then eventually you don't have to invest in those things anymore because now you've learned them enough to teach your own people without having to keep paying someone else for it. So, you know, it's just people who want to help are going to find out ways to help. If you want to, you will. You know what I mean? Like, you're doing this interview, and I have information to give to you, to give to other people. And I'm going to say, if people don't want to help, they're not going to do anything they're not going to watch this, they're not going to listen to this, and they're not going to research any of the information I give you at all. They're just going to say, like, well, that sure is tough. Anyway, back to, you know, Etsy, back to Instagram, right?
Yeah. Back to my online shopping. You know, like, you're right. It's like,
yeah,
these issues have to be important for you to take action. You can't just shove it under the rug, because that's how this whole thing happened in the first place. Is people just felt like they got so desensitized and weren't doing enough about it. And I feel like it's kind of like, you know, a pot boiling over. It's like you can't just keep stuffing it down. Something has to happen, I think, major. Yeah,
definitely. Absolutely. And I think it's time for something major. I was talking to my mom yesterday, just texting her back and forth. I said, does this feel like change? And basically the general consensus with not just her, but also other folks I've been talking to is it's a start. It's not the end, obviously, right? But it's a start. The guy's getting arrested. It's a start. The one dude getting his charge upgraded to second-degree murder. It's a start. It has to, he can't get off. So it's almost like if he's getting charged with second degree and it doesn't fit, I think he should be retried for third degree, like with the same amount of evidence. Will that stick, or whatever other charge? He can't just go back to the streets and go back to the job. Heck no. You're going to end up, he'd end up being a target. His wife has already left him, and I think if he became a cop, and if he were to become a cop again or whatever, like, you're going to get that man killed. And that might mean his partners get killed too. So, just saying, I'm not saying it should happen, but I am saying I think he would become a target.
Well, yeah. I mean, look what happens in prisons, like pedophile. Like,
yes.
You're a target, like, no one will tolerate that shit.
And they shouldn't. You're Jared from Subway and all those other guys, like, yeah. It's hard to eat Subway, man.
I know, I remember you sat right down. I was like, what? You were like a spokesperson. You lost all this weight.
Yeah, man.
And this is what you're doing?
Seriously. Unbelievable. And all the work I do with kids, it's like, I want to protect them. And then there's weirdo people, creepy people who just, they deserve, well, whatever they deserve. I'll keep that to myself. But anyway, yeah. I just try to do what I can to do what's right, you know what I mean? And I think, like I said before, like you were asking, how do I kind of reconcile the Christian part of me and the justice part of me? I think I'm just learning to just be okay with being pissed off about these things. And because it's not just being pissed off and doing nothing and saying nothing, it's being pissed off and having actions. Like the work I do with the kids as a therapist, what I didn't even want to do initially, it was like, I'll do therapy with adults, but like, here I am, helping raise to a degree. I don't want to put that father role on me, but some kids might take it that way. And so helping raise these little black and white kids and Latino kids to become men and how to deal with their emotions and accept their emotions as they are. So that way they're not ignoring them as society will teach them to do. Society will teach them, you're a guy, man up. No, we're humans, we're allowed to cry, period. You know what I'm saying? And teaching these boys how to do that, like that's how I fight against this other stuff, so that way they can feel strong enough. If this other crap happens to them or starts to happen to them, they can stand up to it and kick a dude in the balls, straight up.
You touched on it a little bit earlier about, do you think this means things are changing? Are you hopeful for the future? And you said it's a start.
Yeah, it's a start, and I just hope it continues. That's the best I can hope for. It's just that it continues and it gets better. Like you said earlier, change doesn't happen overnight. Sorry, my phone just went off. I don't even know what the heck that was. It's a reminder to do something. But yeah, it's a start, and I just hope it continues. So that way it's better for everyone in the future. This isn't, while we're, fighting for Black Lives Matter, that does not mean only black people benefit from this at all. At all, right? So, I just hope people don't think
about
that.
It, like, other groups are oppressed as well, and I feel like what we're doing collectively, I think, helps minorities. I think overall too.
Yep. So, the less police brutality there is, the better, and it'll save lives and it'll save the city money. This was a good interview, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about this. Hey, that's what I'm here for.
I'm glad to speak with you, and I agree. Thank you so much for having this conversation, this much needed conversation. I hope to share, your words with others, and I feel like what you see on social, it's like you don't teach hate, hate is taught, and we should love one another, and it all kind of begins at home. And I feel like the way change will happen is if all of us are doing some baby steps, but collectively it becomes a bigger thing. Is my hope. Yeah.
Yep. We all have to do something because we can't just stand idly by. I mean, there's black folks who don't realize how privileged they are to live in 2020, because it almost makes it seem as though, like, certain things that they say makes it sound like, well, things are better, so everything should just be fine. Like, no. I mean, no. Period. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a privilege sometimes that exists in people that they just don't realize what they're even saying. I'm just like, you guys don't even realize we still got to fight. We still got to fight.
Yeah. Yeah, this is only the beginning. Like, and also just what I've been reading too online is like, this is not a trend. This is not a fad. This is just continuous improvement.
Yeah, exactly.